Hello everyone, this is Ray coming to you from Brixton, South London, doing the third of my Ray Does Who reviews. As you can see, COVID hair is getting even longer now, so hello to the long hair. I'm here today to tell you what my thoughts are on the third Doctor story, The Claws of Axos. So the general storyline for The Claws of Axos, to give you a taster, is that Axos lands on Earth saying that they desperately need fuel to survive their homeworld, and in return for much needed fuel from Earth they promise to share with us axonite, which is a thinking molecule that can replicate anything that you want. Now in reality that's not what axonite is. Axonite drains the energy from all living matter. We discover the Master is involved as he's being captured by Axos, and to bargain for his own life and freedom he uses his knowledge of Earth to help them get the fuel that they need by using axonite to drain the planet. Now, to end off in a nutshell without giving it too much away, it's best captured by the BBC Online description of the storyline, which is: the Axons promise Earth a golden age of prosperity and big frogs. Now think of that what you will, but go ahead and give it a watch. The DVD is available everywhere. This is the third story of the 8th season of Doctor Who, and it's part of that early Pertwee era where he's exiled on Earth with an unworkable TARDIS, working as a scientific advisor to UNIT, with first Liz, then Jo, then Sarah as his companion. This is a 4-episode story that was originally broadcast from the 13th of March to the 4th of April 1971. It was originally intended as a 6-parter, but through the production process was shortened down to 4 to make it a tighter story, and even up to the filming of the first 2 episodes its working title was Vampire in Space, and some early opening credits do include that in the special features of the DVD. You get to see that. It was only from the 3rd episode onwards that they decided to change it to The Claws of Axos. The 4 episodes original viewing figures for the UK went from a low of 6.4 million for episode 3 to a high of 8 million for episode 2. The full DVD was first released in 2005 with a special edition released in 2012. I've been watching the 2005 version, the original release. It was originally intended to be filmed around central London, including Battersea Power Station as the main setting for the story, but with budget restraints of the time, as always, they weren't able to do that, so they had to move the storyline out of London and move it across to Kent, and some of the big space battle scenes had to be cut, as well as filming around some famous London landmarks. As I just said, it ended up being filmed in Kent, and the Dungeness Power Station stood in as the Newton Power Complex for the storyline. During location filming, which took place over 5 days, there was a freak overnight snowstorm, so to explain that away in the storyline, one of the unit's telephone operators announces that there's freak weather conditions due to the Axons landing. For reasons still unknown, and I tried to dig around online, the second Doctor's theme for Doctor Who was used for the opening credits of this. That was also the case for The Mind of Evil and Terror of the Autons, although this story, Claws of Axos, was the last time you heard the second Doctor's theme. After this it reverted to the third Doctor's theme as standard. This was the first time in the Pertwee era that you actually saw the interior of the TARDIS. Also, for the one and only time, the TV screen in the TARDIS was a circular TV screen buried in the roundels on the wall of the TARDIS. The last time you'd seen the TARDIS interior was Troughton's final story, The War Games. Final interesting fact, and it's a bit of a naughty one, Jo Grant, Katie Manning, wore purple suede shoes, a purple miniskirt, and at one point you even get a flash of her purple knickers. So as I've done previously, I want to end on a positive where possible, so I'll start with the negatives of the storyline. First one I noticed was if they, as in the Axons, have held the Master captive before we see them in the storyline, why do they then torture the Doctor to find out the secret of time travel? Surely they got that from the Master in the first place. Also, when anyone's held captive on the Axon spaceship, they're held by claws, because part of the storyline you realise is Axos is one being. It's everything through from the spaceship to the humanoids. Everyone is one living being. So the spaceship itself is one massive entity, and there's claws that kind of grab people to hold them in place while they're captive. Strange thing is, if you try and dart out of the way or move quickly, they quickly grab you. But if you slowly, gingerly pick yourself up, they just sit there and let you get away. Wonder why that is. Bit of a flaw in the storyline, but it's a good way of the people getting out so they can carry on the storyline. Also, problem with general sci-fi of that era, I guess, not just Doctor Who, the baddies tell the whole plan to the Doctor so he can have time to figure out how to fix it, sort it out, and defeat the baddies. A part of the storyline, the government minister that is running the show, so to speak, he's trying to keep Axonite for British use only, very selfishly, and when the Prime Minister gets wind of it, he says, no, you have to share it with the world. So he makes one phone call, somehow it's distributed around the world, just like that. Towards the end of the storyline, the Master is in disguise with a plastic type of face mask to get into the power complex for his own dastardly deeds, and Sergeant Benton, that you might know from all the unit stories, doesn't recognise the Master in disguise. It's a pretty bad disguise. I'm not sure how anyone thought that was anyone but the Master, but hey ho. You have, as most stories of the time, the stereotypical dumb, pompous government official who's called Mr. Chin, Chin, and when he finds out what Axonite can do, he tries to keep it for British use only. Now he's being silly there, but in a bit of a twist, of course, with the storyline, the fact that Axonite can drain energy from the whole world, the fact that he doesn't distribute it around the world is what actually saves us in the end. So hey ho, the bad becomes the good. Final negative that kind of bugged me was the Axons having to what they call depersonalize at points of the storyline. Now, for those of you that have seen it or have seen any images of the storyline, they start off as beautiful, golden, perfect humanoid looking people, and when they depersonalize, they become these huge spaghetti monsters, and they depersonalize to go looking for the main reactor of the neutron power complex. Not sure why, but it's a convenient part of the story that they land next to the power station before they realise they need the power station for what they are looking for. Now I'm going to end on the positives like I always prefer to do, and one thing that stuck out in the storyline was the great creative use of explaining how there was freak weather conditions when they were filming on location. So in the storyline they decided to add about the Axons landing and creating freak weather patterns. Great way to explain why one scene is snow, one scene is sun, next one is rain. Brilliant! They also had a great use of colour in the filming of this serial. Now this was the early days of BBC Colour. 1971, BBC just went colour. Well, Doctor Who went colour in 1970, so they throw everything at the screen on this one. It's a big psychedelic trip. The Axon's design was really cool as well, and a good use of colour. The bronzed Greek goddess look, and they then turned into the spaghetti monsters that you see. And even the transition from one to the other was quite creative at the time, with a slow crossfade to see the ugly Axons coming out onto the screen. I take it as a positive. It's quite funny when one of the scientists is killed by Axonite and he kind of bubbles down and turns into what I can only describe as a psychedelic blanket. You can tell it's a blanket with someone inside writhing around, but hey, how else are they going to show this on a limited budget? I also take it as a positive that the Doctor acts quite selfishly at the end of this storyline, and he's quite prepared to leave Earth, Unit and Joe behind when he thinks the TARDIS is working, thanks to the Master. And it's only when he takes off, without even saying goodbye really, that he realises the Time Lords have programmed the TARDIS to always return to Earth. And he describes himself when he comes back and he goes, I'm like an intergalactic yo-yo. Now I'm going to end on a couple of final thoughts to inspire you to go and watch it yourself at your leisure. The first thing I thought, unlike my last review, The Faceless Ones, where I thought the 6 episodes of that could have been cut down to 4, in this storyline it was intended to be 6 episodes and it was cut down to 4, and I think that worked to its advantage. It was a faster, tight storyline and quite a good way of defeating the Axons at the end. Although it's a typical story of the Pertwee era in the fact that he's stuck on Earth, so it's always in the same setting somewhat. I think it's one of the better ones and makes best use of that setting. Contemporary Earth, John Pertwee, the Master, the Brigadier Joe unit, and fighting an alien coming to destroy Earth. It's a great way of using all of that to its strengths, and one of the better examples of one of the Earthbound stories. So for my third review, it's my first real thumbs up for a Doctor Who storyline. Thanks for watching, everyone. That is my review of the third Doctor story, The Claws of Axos. I hope you found it fun and interesting. Now, I post these on both YouTube and Facebook, so please, when you've watched this video on whatever format, like, comment and subscribe on either page. Now, for the fourth Doctor story that I will be reviewing in the next video, it's going to be The Ark in Space, but in a different format to usual. Laserdisc. For those of you who don't know what Laserdisc is, it is the precursor to DVD. Basically, it looks like a huge silver vinyl. So, I will see you next time, and if you would like, please make some comments or thoughts about what you would like me to review for the Peter Davison story that will come after this one.